Good afternoon to you. 306 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, retired FBI agent and whistleblower George Hill will be with us at 3:30 to react to the marathon testimony today from the FBI Director, Christopher Wray. A lot to get into on that subject. I'll go into some of the highlights in a moment. David Asher is with us at 4:30. A former State Department official who was involved in investigating the origins of COVID. Brand new information this week on the scientists who knew that the lab leak theory was very likely and worked to suppress that in public. Their private messages now coming out. And Ben Klein is with us at 5 o'clock. He's Virginia's congressman, one of them, as a part of that House Judiciary Committee today, asking questions of the FBI Director, Chris Wray. We'll ask him about what it was like in that room. That's ahead at 5. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Yeah, I've been watching and listening to this hearing all day long today, with a man who's quite obviously a very slippery human being. This FBI Director, Christopher Wray, who is, it's just amazing to listen to him because he's at times smug, at times indignant. He will occasionally share information that's of interest, and then he'll routinely make claims about how he just doesn't know the answer to questions of all sorts of important things. You just can't believe him. That's the unfortunate truth of this. You just can't believe him on so many of these things. For instance, Thomas Massey today was asking Christopher Wray about the status of the investigation into the January 6 pipe bombers. You remember this? There was pipe bombs left outside the DNC and RNC. Are you going to get to the bottom of this? And all these many years later, we have no answers. We have no idea what's going on with that case. Who planted those bombs? Were they real? Was there any actual threat? Why is it that the Secret Service seemed to have missed this as Kamala Harris was hanging out at the DNC? How come nobody knew about any of this? How can you not find this guy? I thought DC had cameras everywhere. It's becoming a pattern, isn't it, with these investigations? You get like a cocaine bag left in the White House. Oh, there's just no way to know who brought it in or left it here. Pipe bombs left outside of the party headquarters? It is just so hard to get to the bottom of this. Remember Merrick Garland telling us why they couldn't find the people who were attacking pro-life pregnancy centers? These people attack at night. It's just really hard to track them when they attack at night. It's amazing. Their job becomes so difficult when it's politically convenient for it to be difficult. Fascinating. January 6th continued to be a subject of a lot of conversation today, including over how many people were involved, how many FBI agents were involved in January 6th. Were there FBI agents crawling all over the place on January 6th? How many were there? Christopher Wray today said he doesn't know. He doesn't know. He doesn't even know if there was any FBI agents involved. Do you believe that? Do you believe that at all? Here's a Democrat Congressman, Steve Cohen, asking Chris Wray today about whether Ray Epps was a secret government agent.
Do you have any knowledge of Ray Epps being a secret government agent?
No. I will say this notion that somehow the violence at the Capitol on January 6th was part of some operation orchestrated by FBI sources and agents is ludicrous and is a disservice to our brave, hardworking, dedicated men and women.
Yeah, it's ludicrous that the FBI, and then he would be asked, well, how many FBI agents were there? I don't know. He said something to the effect of, I don't know if there were any FBI agents involved on January 6th. Really? And then he's asked about confidential human sources. How many confidential human sources were in the crowd on January 6th? And he's like, I just can't speak to that. It's the subject of ongoing court cases, and I can't talk about it. Really? Well, that's become a familiar dog and pony show, hasn't it? We're going to be talking to George Hill coming up here at 3:30 at the bottom of this hour. And he talked about this in his whistleblowing, that the footage from January 6th has been withheld by the government because they're afraid that undercover agents may be exposed.
The SSA for CT2 said, happy to do it. Show us where they were inside the Capitol, and we'll look into it. To which WFO said, we can't show you those
Washington field office
videos unless you can tell us the exact time and place those individuals were inside the Capitol. To which the SSA responded back, and I was privy to these conversations firsthand. Why can't you show us? Why can't you just give us access to the 11,000 hours of video that's available? Because there may be UC's undercover officers or CHS's confidential human sources on those videos whose identity we need to protect.
All right, so people within the FBI were convinced that there were sources and agents that needed to be protected within that footage. Christopher Wray today suggesting he can't give answers on that subject or that he doesn't suspect any FBI agents were in the crowd. Yeah. Does that inspire confidence in you? Matt Gaetz, who had a very fascinating line of questioning today. Let me concentrate for a moment on the January 6th angle here. He asked Christopher Wray whether he perjured himself when he told Senator Mike Lee in Senate testimony, sworn testimony, that there was no involvement with FISA in the January 6th investigation. We now know that is untrue. So why did he lie to the Senate? That's Matt Gaetz' question today.
I guess the question, Director Wray, is did you not know when you were answering these questions that the FBI was engaging in these illegal searches, or did you perjure yourself to Senator Lee?
I certainly didn't perjure myself. At the time that I testified in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, I didn't have that piece of information. I will add...
Well, that was a court order. You didn't have that piece of information because the court hadn't yet rendered a judgment. Did you not know when you gave the untruthful answer before Senator Lee that this was going on?
It was a truthful answer. I did not believe FISA had been involved in the January 6th
But it was. So you didn't... The answer is the FBI has broken so bad that people can go and engage in queries that when you come before the Congress to answer questions, you're like blissfully ignorant. You're blissfully ignorant as to the unlawful queries. You're blissfully ignorant as to the Biden shakedown regime. And it just seems like it gets into a kind of a creepy place as well.
Yeah, in other words, if you can't answer our questions, can you send the person who can? Because it appears that you are, as he said, blissfully ignorant of all of these jarring scandals from inside the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Matt Gaetz began his questioning asking Christopher Wray about Hunter Biden's text message, his WhatsApp message to that Chinese businessman.
I'm sitting here with my father. I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. Sounds like a shakedown, doesn't it, Director?
I'm not going to get into commenting on that.
You seem deeply uncurious about it, don't you? Almost suspiciously uncurious. Are you protecting the Bidens?
Absolutely not. The FBI does not and has no interest in
You won't answer the
protecting
question
anyone
about whether or not
politically.
that's a shakedown, and everybody knows why you won't answer it. Because to the millions of people who will see this, they know it is.
There's something going on here. And the FBI, look, how many times has the FBI taken statements from people who say they have information on the Bidens and then never followed up with them on the statements that they give? Hello? Tony Bobulinski? Hello? Gal Luft? They take a statement in the form of this anonymous person out of Ukraine, this FD 1023 form, saying that Hunter Biden and the Biden family were being bribed. Were being bribed by Burisma in order to get a prosecutor in Ukraine fired, something that Joe Biden very publicly did in the end. So how many times is the FBI going to say, well, we're not going to follow that logic? Or what about when FBI officials are involved in burying stories, burying allegations under the heading of this is Russian disinformation? We have whistleblowers who have told us that the FBI was involved in trying to mitigate inquiries into the Biden family by suggesting that true allegations were actually Russian disinformation. And that includes the Hunter Biden laptop, which the FBI authenticated back in 2019. This is not in any way satisfying. So when Chris Wray sits there, he's like, no, we would protect the Bidens? How dare you? How dare you suggest that? It's a scam. It's a total scam coming out of the mouth of a slick FBI director pretending like everything's on the up and up. He knows better. It is not. And he's covering up for an agency that's hopelessly corrupt at this point. Eric Swalwell was embarrassing today. He's a Democrat, as you know. Fang Fang's boyfriend, or Yum Yum. I forget which one it is. And he, who is it that says Yum Yum all the time? Who is that? Oh, Troy Nels, refers to the Chinese spy who slept with Eric Swalwell's Yum Yum. Pretty funny. Eric Swalwell gave Christopher Wray a tongue bath today, and he started talking about Family Day at the FBI, as if this was relevant to government oversight of an agency that is obviously broken.
I want to talk more about your workforce because that's where you started. A couple weeks ago at the Bureau, you had Family Day. Can you tell us what Family Day is?
Family Day is an opportunity for employees from really all over the FBI. It tends to be primarily from the nearby geographies because of the trip that they have to make.
Oh, okay, this is also stupid. Anyway, so he asked about Family Day and wasted a whole bunch of valuable time with the FBI director. Eric Swalwell also complained that Republicans were asking about Hunter Biden's laptop, which, of course, is the centerpiece of evidence against the Biden family and their corruption.
Chairman, I've counted in this hearing, and we're only about an hour and a half in, the use of the word laptop about 20 times. In fact, in the chairman's opening statement, he said that he's upset that he believes the FBI prevented more Americans from learning about a private citizen's laptop.
Yeah, well, that's true. They did do that. Remember, they warned, in quotation marks, the social media companies about a hack and leak operation. They claimed a big dump of information was coming. They've even said out loud that it may involve Hunter Biden. So the social media companies were primed for this exact form of censorship in late 2020 when the New York Post publishes an article based on the laptop findings. The social media companies moved swiftly to fulfill the FBI's expectations that they would censor the Hunter Biden story, an authentic story about an authentic laptop with authentic information on it. So Swalwell says, well, they keep bringing this up like it's something. It is something, you disgusting liar.
That is bananas to me. You all are bringing up FISA every single question.
Yeah, because they don't like people. They don't like that we have a federal government agency using tools that are designed to spy on foreign adversaries. Those tools are being used to spy on American citizens. Like a real congressman, not a kid who looks like Dennis the Menace, a real congressman would be upset with the federal government abusing its power on a routine basis. So Eric Swalwell says, they keep on bringing up FISA. They keep bringing up FISA. Why are they bringing up FISA? You child.
Essentially saying to the American people that you're guardians of personal security and privacy, but the 2020 election was determined because the FBI didn't let more Americans see a private citizen's non-consensual nudes? Is that what we're saying here?
No, nobody's saying that. You moron. No one is saying that. You assembled a poorly constructed straw man and then set it on fire. And that is, nobody's having that conversation. Oh, we didn't get to see Hunter Biden naked, and therefore Joe Biden won. That's the framework that he set up. I've seen far too much of Hunter Biden. If there's any aspect of the laptop I wanted censored, it was Hunter Biden's nude photos. I don't need to see these images. I'm just kidding. The feds should not be involved in censoring any of this stuff. I'm just saying, be responsible. Don't share the Hunter Biden nude photos. Nobody needs to see that crap. All right.
Things here, and please don't distract here because we're focusing on those who were there in an undercover capacity on January 6th. How many were there?
Again, I'm not sure that I can give you that number as I sit here. I'm not sure there were undercover agents on scene.
I find that kind of a remarkable statement, Director. At this point, you don't know whether there were undercover federal agents, FBI agents in the crowd or in the Capitol on January 6th?
I say that because I want to be very careful. There have been a number of court filings related to some of these topics, and I want to make sure that I stick within what's in.
I understand that.
That's Congressman Andy Biggs talking to Chris Wray today. Isn't that is incredible, as the old definition of the word goes, meaning not believable. That is incredible. That the FBI director would have no idea whether they had undercovers in the crowd. Come on. Let's take a phone call. We've got Ryan in Manassas, line 2. Ryan, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. That statement you just played directly contradicts the statement from the Capitol Hill police chief that now this is all per Tucker Carlson in that recent interview that he had with that English bloke. But he said that place was packed full of feds that day on January.
Yeah, in fact, here's the audio you're referencing. It was a Russell Brand conversation. Tucker revealed that the former Capitol Police Chief, Stephen Sund, said this.
I mean, I had no thought in my head as I watched this happen on television and in the subsequent weeks that U.S. law enforcement or military agencies had anything to do with it. That never crossed my mind. I never thought it was a false flag or anything like that. I'm not a conspiracist by temperament. I never thought that. And then I interviewed the chief of the Capitol Police, Stephen Sund, in an interview that was never aired on Fox, by the way. I was fired before it could air. I'm going to interview him again. But Stephen Sund was the totally non-political, worked for Nancy Pelosi. I mean, this was not some right-wing activist. He was the chief of the Capitol Police on January 6th. And he said, oh, yeah. That crowd was filled with federal agents. What? Yes. Well, he would know, of course, because he was in charge of security at the site.
Filled with federal agents. Meanwhile, the FBI director today, first stating, I don't think there were any undercovers. Congressman Andy Biggs, who we spoke with yesterday, he says, wait a second. That's an amazing statement. You're saying no? Nothing? And he's like, well, I have to be careful what I say because, pending court cases. Was he walking back from that statement? Did he perjure himself today? We'll keep exploring it. I've got more clips today from the FBI director's testimony. George Hill is an FBI whistleblower, and he's going to join us here in mere minutes to comment on what he is seeing and hearing. Good afternoon to you. 3:35 here, Newstalk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to talk to David Asher. During the Trump administration, he was tasked with investigating the origins of COVID, and boy, did he run into trouble when he started looking into that. We have new revelations now on prominent scientists who suppressed information around the lab leak theory, who behind the scenes, according to their private messages, very much knew that it was likely that COVID came from that lab in Wuhan, China. Also, Ben Klein will be with us, Congressman Ben Klein, at 5 o'clock. We'll talk to him about that hearing today. He was a part of it in the House Judiciary Committee with FBI Director Christopher Wray. More on that in a moment. And you can chat with us today at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Yeah, FBI Director Wray today testifying on a number of issues, including January 6th, why it's taking forever to find the pipe bombers, why the FBI was involved in surveilling parents and treating them as domestic terrorists, whether or not the FBI is covering up for Hunter Biden. The list goes on and on and on. There really are, unfortunately, too many scandals within the FBI to hit every one as robustly as we'd like to. But I'd like to concentrate for a moment on what my next guest thinks is interesting in all of this. George Hill is with us. He's a retired supervisory intelligence analyst and an FBI whistleblower who joins us on the phone. George, good to have you with us on the show. Thank you.
Hey, great. How are you? Good to be back.
I'm doing good. Is there anything that jumps out to you today with FBI Director Wray's testimony?
A couple things right off the top of my head. Number one, he's finally admitted in public setting that the Bank of America list is real. And that was in response to Jordan and Massey's letter that they sent on May 25th to Bank of America, asking for, to shorten the letter, more information regarding the genesis behind the data mining effort that Bank of America did. And they responded in the affirmative that, yes, we did do it. And then Wray unbelievably, was trying to play dumb during testimony. And I forget who the congressman was. He said, well, we have the email right here from your own FBI agent requesting the list. So that was another question that I had.
Let me make sure, George, if I can, because I want the audience to fully understand what you're talking about. There's a sequence of events where Bank of America was providing gun purchase records to the FBI, and the concept was that the Bank of America just did that. Basically, Christopher Wray was trying to represent it today. That Bank of America did that of their own volition, and the retort was actually no. This was at the request of FBI officials, FBI agents, that these purchase records were sent over to the FBI, and then Wray would say, well, then we decided to send some of it back because we didn't want to go overboard. And Jim Jordan said, well, okay, so you're admitting to an abuse. He's like, well, no, it's not really an abuse. It's just sometimes you think that maybe things go too far.
Yeah, unbelievable, right? I mean, this
is
kind of like the dog ate my homework. For a man at that level, the director of the FBI, to have such a mealy-mouthed answer to what is a fact-based question with the evidence right there in front of him, coming off the dais from the congressman, is outrageous. But just to clear something up, the Bank of America, when they pulled that purchase data, they went then and layered on top of that anyone in that original poll that had ever purchased a firearm. So it wasn't just a data poll of people who used a BOA product to buy firearms. It was, did you use a BOA product in the Delaware, Maryland, Virginia area in between 5 and 7 January? And then once you're on that list, let's look at it again. And if you have ever bought a firearm, you go to the top of that list. So, Second Amendment voters are primarily single-issue voters. This is not a good group to run afoul of, and why there isn't a class action lawsuit by BOA customers, I have no idea why.
This is amazing to me too. I know we've talked about a lot of this, and as we learn about these things from some public reporting, but it was remarkable to hear Christopher Wray today just basically very casually admit over and over that there's a pretty extensive relationship with the FBI and America's corporations to surveil Americans, and everyone seems okay with that.
Yeah, look, we, meaning citizens, have known that companies scrape off all of our data, just moving a mouse over something, and you wind up getting sucked up, into databases. And the FBI realized a few years ago that they could go and enter the free market for that and buy that information outside of any kind of legal process, say whether it's a preservation order or a subpoena or a warrant. They can just buy this data and then using computers, then data mine that to go forward in protecting Americans from any harm.
Let me, I do have some audio of this exchange between, I want to make sure to play some of it here. This is the exchange between Jim Jordan and Christopher Wray today on this very important subject.
Mr. Wray, did the FBI ask financial institutions to turn over their customers, you yield the time to me. Did the FBI ask financial institutions to turn over their customers' debit and credit card purchase history in the Washington, D.C. area for January 5th and 6th, 2021?
I don't know the answer to that as I sit here right now.
Well, we do, because Bank of America gave us this email from the FBI to Bank of America.
Well, I am aware that Bank of America provided information to the FBI, but what communications occurred between the FBI and Bank of America about it?
Let's read it. To recap our morning call, we are prepared to action the following threshold. Customers transacting debit card, credit card, Washington, D.C. purchases between 1/5/21, 1/6/21. That's scary enough. But then the next bullet point's even more scary. Any historical, capital letters, all capitals, any historical purchase of a firearm. You guys asked financial institutions, at least Bank of America, we think more. Did you guys ask them?
Again, I don't have the full sequence of the back and forth. You've got looks like you've got one email that I haven't seen before here.
Is it really possible that he would be ignorant of this, George Hill?
No, he shouldn't be. I not testified. It was an interview, which I'm also, under penalty, for lying in that interview. I'm the one who brought this to his committee's attention, to Jordan's committee's attention. It was leaked to the Rolling Stone 2 days later. If he is ignorant of this, then he made a decision to remain ignorant of it. I'm sorry, but he has to at some point start to take responsibility for something, and that's one thing that we've seen today is he isn't willing to accept responsibility for anything other than an accolade. But yeah, it defies credibility.
Yeah, it strikes me that a lot of the testimony today from Christopher Wray sounded something like that, which is once they had him dead to rights, he suddenly was ignorant of the details.
Yeah. No, and then the other thing that struck me today, right between the eyes, was his admission that there were, CHSs and agents embedded in the Capitol. Now, I'm using a shorthand version of what he said, but again, I was the one who brought that to the attention of his committee, when I went down and testified in the wintertime. Yep. I think it was the end of February, and was on your show right afterwards. But this is amazing that he actually admitted it. So it always feels good that I'm not facing any felony charges, to be backed up by the facts.
Yeah, he indicated today that that it seems that there were confidential human sources, but he can't really talk about it right now because it's the subject of various court proceedings. But he did say that he is not certain of whether or not there were any undercover FBI agents in the crowd. Is that a weird answer, you think?
That's a lie. Okay, having organized multiple high security events in my time in Boston, one of which was the Boston Marathon, which I did for almost 10 years, organized the security around that event. The FBI will always put agents embedded within a crowd in civilian attire, and I'm not going to get into all the legalese here, but they will do what's called Terry stops, and if they have a reasonable suspicion to stop and ask someone, some questions, and they're limited to just 5 minutes, and you either have to let them go or you have to detain them, legally detain them under a reasonable suspicion. But there's no way the FBI would have had to violate its own protocol going back decades not to have undercovers inside that crowd on January 6th.
So this would have been standard operating procedures. That's a separate question from the way that those FBI agents acted while they were in the crowd. But you're saying that it is totally normal for big, high-profile events, especially politically fraught ones, I guess, for FBI agents to be in the crowd?
Not just normal. It's SOP, standard operating procedure.
All right, here's
it would have been malpractice if they didn't.
Here's the exchange. This is Andy Biggs and Christopher Wray today.
Things here, and please don't distract here because we're focusing on those who were there in an undercover capacity on January 6th. How many were there?
Again, I'm not sure that I can give you that number as I sit here. I'm not sure there were undercover agents on scene.
So do you think that's a lie, a flat lie from the FBI director?
Absolutely. I know. I'd look him right in the eye and tell him it's a lie.
Yeah. So
he would have had to have violated his own procedures
to not have somebody
going back decades.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is amazing to hear it though. It's so
and not for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you would want that,
Yeah, what I don't want is FBI undercovers, inciting a riot or being involved in something like that. And I would assume that there are supposed to be protections against that. That FBI agents can't, blend into a crowd and then call on people to burn down the building.
Details are different, but it's no different than these terrorism cases that the FBI has been putting together since 9/11, where you have people that are barely capable of backing a car down a driveway, and the FBI, saunters up to them as you see, he's undercover, and walks that fine line between entrapment and a conviction. So this happens all the time.
Yeah.
This is part of the culture.
There was a moment today, actually, where a Democrat Congressman Glenn Ivey thanked Christopher Wray for the FBI's kidnapping attempt of Gretchen Whitmer, which goes right to the point you're making. Listen to this a remarkable moment.
And also, there's been a great deal of talk about the domestic terror threats. For me, the planned attempt to kidnap the governor of Michigan and apparently kill her was chilling to the extreme, and I appreciate the fact that you all were able to intervene on that.
Of course they were able to intervene. The FBI planned it. They had like two morons sitting in the room with them, drooling on themselves, and the FBI planned the whole thing out. And then when they quote catch the guys, now they get awards. It's amazing. You stopped the kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer. The FBI planned the whole thing, George Hill.
Yeah, I one of those guys, I believe, I don't know the proper medical term, but he was borderline, a clinic idiot, not someone who ignores information, but someone who just doesn't have the intellectual capacity, the IQ to process day-to-day events. That was one of those guys.
He was dull.
And one of the agents involved in that, Jason Chambers, I worked with, who was running a little side hustle against FBI policy, who still is pulling down an FBI paycheck, and then the supervisory special agent in charge of it, who was into swinging and beat his wife almost to death, on her nightstand table next to her bed at home because she wouldn't, get into the mood of things where they were, he was trying to have a good time. And nobody ever mentions, the kinds of people that the FBI has, in leadership positions running these kind of, borderline entrapment cases. Everybody keeps on saying it's a few bad apples at the top. Well, a GS-14 supervisory special agent is not at the top.
Finally, we heard a bunch today, George Hill, from the FBI director, Chris Wray. He insisted that whatever problems may have existed in the past, they're resolved now. He's instituted all sorts of reforms. The FBI has never been better, and you shouldn't question the integrity of the many thousands of FBI agents who work for the Bureau. What do you make of these kinds of promises coming out of Wray's mouth today?
Yeah, well, the facts don't bear that out, do they? You've had a couple 100,000 702 violations. If this training doesn't stop bad behavior, just like gun laws don't stop criminals from using guns. The FBI loves to point to Virtual Academy, which is the online training platform. Oh, we instituted this training, and we have mandatory, training in all the offices, and the SAC signed off on it, and oh, by the way, his field health measures are getting a good grade, so his end of the year bonus will be better. This is all nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. And we could go on all day. You don't have the time, but none of the facts bear out his testimony in that regard.
Yeah, no, there's some really bizarre moments today, and some of it takes reading between the lines, and I plan on doing more of that throughout the show today, because including the surveilling of parents nationwide, just unbelievable, the stuff that's happened under this FBI director and certainly over the past few years in that agency. Thank you very much. Go ahead, George.
Yeah. No, they forget the genesis behind that. That whole thing of surveilling parents was coordinated between the DOJ asking Randy Weingartner at the NEA to initiate a letter to the DOJ, and then the DOJ, so this all took place.
Yeah. It was the National School Board Association, and it was done in concert with the DOJ and the White House. They were all involved in this.
Right.
And
they forget to mention the genesis behind all this. They just jump right to the middle of the story and try to make it okay or whatever.
Yeah.
It's exasperating. Thank God I've got exercise equipment here at the house, because if not, I absolutely would have blown a heart valve.
Yeah, that's key. Exercise. It'll help keep you calm. All right. Thank you, George. Really appreciate your time today, sir. We'll have you back again soon. Thank you.
All right.
Remember the Biden administration's effort to target parents nationwide. All of a sudden, Christopher Wray today trying to establish some distance between himself and Attorney General Merrick Garland. A fascinating exchange. I've got the details for you ahead on the Vince Coglianese Show.